brought to you by Cheetah Sports Bras, the compression bra that provides maximum support and comfort for any sporting activity, whether you're playing hockey or running a marathon. Cheetah provides the stability of layering 2 or 3 regular sports bras. It makes a big difference to thoracic back support too. So stop by cheetahsport.com or follow the link on our website and mention WIS Sports. At age 22, England hockey star Kate Richardson-Walsh was thrown in the deep end. After just one Olympic campaign, the young rising star was bestowed captaincy just 1 year out from Athens Olympics. It was a sink or swim moment for Kate, and after the team failed to qualify for Athens, it may have seemed like Kate was sinking along with the rest of England hockey. Fast forward 12 long years and how things changed, with that young captain from Manchester becoming a gold medal Olympic champion, Officer of the Order of the British Empire, and the most capped player for her country with 375 appearances. So just how does one lead a team from the depths of despair to ultimate glory? Well, recently I chatted with Kate Richardson-Walsh to find out just this. Kate, let's paint a picture, the Rio Olympics, your 4th Olympic Games. You've gone through the tournament undefeated and you're facing the reigning champions Netherlands in the gold medal match. What were you feeling personally in lead up to that match?
I think obviously it's an Olympic final, so we're expecting a really close game. I think we had built our performances, through the tournament, so I think we were feeling in a good place in terms of our team performance. We hadn't watched a lot of the Dutch games, but speaking to people, they said they weren't playing as well as they had, but then they're the Dutch and they're coming for their 3rd Olympic gold medal, some of those girls, and so that that they're going to be able to deal with that pressure and they're going to turn something special on. And I think that was their best game of the tournament. And you expect in all the games that I've ever played against the Netherlands, you expect them to somewhat dominate the game, and they absolutely did. And I think just our awareness of that and being okay to some extent with that, I think helped us in that game. I think if we'd gone into that game thinking, we've won every game, let's just go and smash it, it just wouldn't have worked well for us, because I think it would have had a negative effect on us during the game. But they are the best team in the world. They're coming for their 3rd gold medal. They're going to have a lot of the ball. We just need to take our chances when they come to us. And I think because as England, we'd played them in the European Championships the year before and won on penalties. I think we thought, well, if we can at least get it to a draw, that's also good for us. So it's kind of like we had 2 bites of the cherry in that way. So we just felt like if we do what we did for every other game in that tournament, just stick to processes. Danny's an amazing tactician, just follow his tactics, work together, work hard, work as a collective, then we believed that we could get what we wanted out of the game.
So the siren goes and the score's 3-3, which means one-on-ones. You're a bit of a halfway specialist, as was I, as I like to refer to it. Were you confident at that stage, personally and also as a team, that you would win?
Yeah, I remember when the final on the hooter went, and I celebrated a little bit because I was like, this is good. This is good for us. One, because we're good at penalties. I know the preparation that had gone in, the years and years and years and hours of time spent on the field, time spent in the video room, looking at statistics, all of the work that had gone into the penalties was for this moment. And you do all that work, never knowing if that moment's going to come, but that work had been done. We were as well prepared as we ever could have been. There's no other thing we could have done, I think, to help us in that situation. And then secondly, as I said, as England, the year before, we'd beaten the Netherlands on penalties. So we kind of had that bit of a boost. And I think we knew also that the Dutch girls had penalties in the semi-final. I think it was against Germany. And that was really tight. I think it was sudden death. It was really tight. And psychologically, that was also probably playing on their minds. I think at that moment when the hooter went, I thought psychologically we've got a bit of an advantage here. And yeah, probably for me being a halfway specialist, it was a bit easier to think in that way. If I'd been one of the takers, I think there probably would have been a whole lot of nerves just suddenly coming on. But for me, I was like, yes, come on, this is it. This is our time.
I spoke with the Australian player Mark Knowles once about their entire Olympic campaign when they won in Athens, and he said that they actually didn't play their best hockey. They just built right throughout and almost edged their way through. For you, how would you describe what it actually felt like playing in that Rio team throughout the tournament comparatively to other Olympics?
I think when I look back, but also at the time, I remember thinking it was something special. I think the game against the Hockeyroos, that first game, was so incredibly tight, and both sides were coming in hoping to be amongst the medals. And I think just edging that game, I think gave us a really good positive start, and I think that got some good momentum right from the get-go. And I think the American game was very similar. Our last pool game, again, it was fine margins, and I don't think we played a different style. I think the semi-final and the final, we played a different formation than we played the whole of the rest of the tournament and the whole build-up. We're able to kind of build this mindfulness and momentum, just staying really focused on the present and not getting too stressed about what had happened 5 minutes, 2 minutes before, or, what was going to happen. God, there's only so long on the clock and we need to score against America. It was all very in the moment. And we'd done a lot of work with psychologists leading up to it. We'd done a lot of work with Danny leading up to it, but I don't know exactly what got us to be in that brilliant mindset as a group. And I think that is the kind of holy grail for all sports teams, to be in that mindful place where you're all on the same page and you're not stressing about what's been or what's coming. It's all very much in the moment. But I completely agree with what Mark Knowles said. It was literally really boring, but one game at a time. Just keep clawing away. Next game, okay, done, recover, on to the next one. It was never looking too far ahead. And the cliches are the cliches for a reason, because pretty much all they work. And so, yeah, it was that thing where you kind of felt like something special was happening, but you didn't want to think that because that was getting ahead of yourself. So then you'd rein yourself back in, and you could almost, the whole group were kind of sensing that. You kind of would have eye contact with one of your teammates and you'd be like, oh, this is going really well, and be like, shh, stop it. Back to
no jinxing each other.
Yeah, it was like keeping each other in check. It was a really nice feeling.
The Olympic gold, it was a culmination of years of hard work. So let's take it back to when you were 23 or 22, I think it was, in 2003. You had a period of time in the actual team, including the 8th place at the Sydney Olympics, but you were bestowed the honour of captaincy very young. Was that exciting for you, or were you a bit concerned about heading up a team which sort of hadn't been performing?
It was really exciting. I just think the honour of being voted, I think being given the captaincy is amazing. I think being voted in by your teammates is extra special in some ways. I think to know that the people around you want you to lead them, I think is extraordinarily special, and I felt that immediately. But then I think it started to sink in, and I started to think, wow, this is a big job, and I don't really know what I'm doing necessarily. And I don't think I fully appreciated at that age, 22, 23, why I'd been voted in to that position. There were players in the team who were 10 years older than me, 10 years more experience, had hundreds of caps, Olympic medal, and there was me, being the captain. I just thought, what can I do? And I think I look back at the first couple of years and think, oh God, why would who would put me in that position? I really didn't really know, and all I could do was to just be the way that I'd always been. So on the field, lead by example. I think playing in the middle at the back is a position where you can see the whole field, and you can see presses and outlets and possessions and space and numbers, and you're in a nice position where you can have a chance to communicate that and organise that. And it's something that I love about that position, and I suppose that helped in that captaincy and kind of on the field stuff. But it was more the off the field stuff that I wasn't really aware of what I could do, what my role was, what the team, I think, wanted from me, I think most importantly. And I don't think I really got that until much later on in my captaincy. It
was a bit of a rough start to the journey of being a captain, because 2004 was Athens, and the team actually failed to qualify for the Athens Olympics. What was that period of time like for you? Did you consider hanging up the boots at all, or giving up the captaincy?
It was absolutely devastating, and I still get the lump in my throat. I still get really emotional about that time, because for me it was the horror for some of those women in that team, some of those exceptionally talented British female hockey players, that was their last time pulling on a shirt, would be to not qualify for Olympic Games, and that's not the way you want to be going out. And I just felt like I'd let them down. I just felt really down and devastated about the whole thing, and I got straight back on the horse. I was almost, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I could do, but I just thought, well, I have to keep going. So I remember I went and played. We obviously didn't have a program because everything would have been leading up to the Olympics, and that was not going to be. So I remember there was like a B squad, like a development squad for England, and I was like, okay, I want to go along to that. And it was all kind of real youngsters and none of the seniors, and they were like, really, you want to come along to this, like Four Nations tournament, to France it was? And I was like, yeah, I really want to come. And so I went along to that, and it was good for me. It was good for me to just keep going. I think if I'd stopped at that moment and taken that time out, I think I would have had to have considered stopping, because 70% of our funding was taken away. We weren't full time, but we were giving a lot of time to our training. We were certainly training in a full time basis, but just not together. And so that had to stop. Everybody went back to full time work. And I'd just come out of university, so I then started to work, and it was just a really tough time for the sport, for all of the girls, and for me as well. It was a hard time.
Well, things actually started to get better by the time the Beijing Olympics came about. Was this the result of the introduction of Coach Danny Carey, who actually took you to bronze in London and also gold in Rio? Did you think that was a reason why you had that shift?
Yes, I think the association as a whole, so the governing body, I think really got themselves together. I think we'd been functioning not at a great level as an association in terms of where we were going as a sport and how we were going to get there, and all of the planning and how we were organising the finances behind that. So I think that really improved, and then I think that probably helped to then bring in Danny Carey as coach. I mean, he was a young coach coming in. That was his first big job. He'd been coaching at club level, and he'd done some junior England stuff with the boys. But this was, a big step up for him. And I think he must have been, so it was 2005, so he must have been like 35 or something like that, 34, 35. So big first job, and a lot of weight on his shoulders, but then again, it couldn't have gone any worse. So it was a nice place for him to come in, and he immediately set about kind of putting his thoughts, his ideas, his ideals onto the group, and it did start to slowly form. And I don't think it was really until after Beijing until we were able to have the full-time program. I think that was his baby. I think being able to have a centralised full-time program, that's when we really saw things kick on.
You would have had quite an extensive relationship with Danny Carey over a number of years. What do you admire about him, and do you ever give him a bit of feedback on what he could actually do better?
Yeah, I think we have a love-hate relationship. I think he said that in the press before as well. I think our psychologist, Andrea First, said, you two are going to go to the grave, like fighting. And I was like, yeah. We constantly were challenging each other, and I hate conflict. And so that was quite hard for me. And it took quite a lot of energy out of me. But actually, in the end, I really enjoyed it, and I thrived on it. I think we both probably did in some ways. But I think in the end, no, I'm not going to agree with every decision he makes, and he's not going to agree with my points of view or the way I would go about things. But I think in the end, we were able to give each other space to actually just say what we thought honestly and openly, and we knew that we both wanted the best for the team. So whichever way we were coming from, often different sides, we both wanted the same thing. And I think from that point, you can then start to move things forward. So, sometimes we'd go with what Danny thought, and sometimes it might be what I thought for the best of the players. And we would get to a joint decision. But I think I always knew deep down that he always wanted the best for the team. And he had this big vision. And he was backing himself on it, and he wanted to bring everyone with him. And so you want to get on board with someone like that, even if at times they, wind you up and you get annoyed and a bit angry and have a few tears, which were plenty of tears we shared, throughout the whole squad. But that's because you care. You really want to do well, and you really care, and it's emotional.
You said that after Beijing, it really sort of started to all culmination and things started to work a lot better. Beijing was an interesting time for you, though, because that's when you first started your relationship with your teammate, but now wife, Helen Richardson, or Helen Richardson-Walsh, as we'll call her now. How did the team react when you became open about that relationship?
Yeah, I think it was hard. I think the team, you're so close as a team. You spend days, and especially particularly Olympic Games, it's like 24 hours a day. You're in each other's pockets all the time. You really understand each other and see each other at your best and at your worst. And I think some of the girls, they kind of thought maybe something was going on, but they weren't sure, because everyone has their close friends in the team they'd spend the majority of the time with. It might be their roomie or someone in their apartment. But I think for some of the girls who we'd known for over 10 years, I think they kind of thought something's going on. And I think for them that was the most unnerving thing. It was the not knowing, it was the guessing and the insinuation and the conversations that were kind of going on and around it. I think once they knew, once some of the girls came and asked us at the end of the games, was something going on, and we said yeah. I think from that point on it was great, and we talked about it really openly in the team because we never ever wanted it to be an issue. And I think from that point on, from that kind of the Beijing Olympics, I think were difficult, but I think from that point on, I think it was good, and Danny was brilliant, and the whole staff, Danny's staff, were brilliant in making sure that it wasn't a problem. So when we were at work, we were Helen and Kate, separate people. We were just there to be the best players that we could be. But when we were away from that, we were a couple, and we were really firm on that, almost to the point of the detriment to our relationship, and that we kind of just kept the Helen and Kate hockey player hats on and brought that home, and find it difficult to kind of slip back into the relationship behaviours and stuff. It was hard for us, but the team and all the staff were absolutely amazing from start to finish. And yeah, we've had to deal with some interesting questions and things from journalists and media, and particularly when we got married.
Well, that's what I was going to ask about, because it's an interesting time here in Australia. You're probably aware, or might not be aware, but we actually don't have same-sex marriage in Australia, but we're about to have a postal vote to try and decide, of all things, they're having a postal vote, which is just ridiculous. But anyway, you mentioned, though, that you and Helen, you were the first same-sex couple to win a gold medal. You were in the public eye. It must be so hard to have your relationship so openly scrutinised.
Yeah, it was strange for us because we were just two people who were in love, and we didn't see what the fuss was about, to be honest. But at the same time, we know that we're very lucky that we have families who are really supportive of us, and they're happy that we're together, and they don't have any problems with our relationship, and they just want us to be happy. And we have friends who support us, but we know that there are hundreds of thousands of people out there who aren't in that situation, who can't tell their family, who struggle to tell their friends, who aren't comfortable in their own skin. And so it's really hard. Whilst we do not want to go out there and be like, big, massive promotion, pushing it in your face kind of thing, we do want people, LGBT people, to see that, hey, there's two sportswomen there who are married, and who cares? Like, it's some people and the girls are married to men, some girls are married to women, and that's just, everything's normal. What is normal? But yeah, we had, lots of the questions. We had, have you double-barreled your names to make a statement? And it's like, would you ask a prominent, so Jess Ennis-Hill, one British heptathlete, you wouldn't ask her that question. She's married to a guy. She wants to double-barrel her name for whatever reason they've decided. You just wouldn't ask her that question. No, we're not making a statement. It's because for us, we don't want to, either of us, give up our surnames. That's our family name, and we want to keep it together. And then, did you have to put Richardson before Walsh because Helen wears the trousers? Like, oh my God, like, really? It just sounds better. You just try and say Walsh.
Helen probably said, yes, it was because I wore the trousers.
Yeah, she probably said that secretly.
You kind of said that, like, you probably didn't necessarily always were desperate to sort of be an advocate, but was there any moment in the time that you have been an advocate for the LGBTI community where you've gone, I feel like I've actually made a difference? Yeah,
we got some amazing letters and Facebook messages and emails and all sorts from a whole range of people, young people, old people, different religions, different backgrounds, saying, just thank you for being yourselves. You've helped me come out to my parents, or you've helped me go and join my local hockey club, and I've realised that's a place that I can be comfortable in being myself and with my sexuality, and people are accepting of me. And that is amazing, because I do think generally the hockey community is really accepting and understanding of difference. We're all different. And so whether it's your sexuality or your religion or your background or whatever it might be, I think you have to accept in a team that you're all different. And hockey's great for that. And there's been that positive side. So some really brilliant lessons saying thank you for just being yourselves. And there's been the horrible side, because of course you can't have yin without yang. So, I've had some horrible hate mail letters and Twitter trolls and stuff like that. Just, and you kind of just, it hurts when you initially get it, and then you just have to say, well, you can't please everyone. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But, I just have to focus on those positive people. And if we can help one person feel that they can be comfortable in their own skin, then it's enough for me.
Yeah, you can't let those keyboard warriors get you down. That's all they do, isn't it?
God, yeah.
2008 was a massive year for you and also Team GB, with the Olympics taking place in London, which was just a fantastic place to attend Olympic Games. And no doubt there was probably a lot of pressure for you to perform in front of your home crowd. You played the first game against Japan and things were going really well, 4-0 up with 4 minutes to go. And then you suffer an injury which really, it could have ended your Olympics right then and there. Can you walk us through what happened?
Yeah, so we were 4-0 up, and me being a competitive defender, some would say stupid, idiot defender, I was against the Japanese right wing, and she was running down the right-hand side, and she went to cross the ball, and I went to take the ball off her on my backhand. So I was, you could say, coming from not a good angle, and took a bit of the ball, which isn't like me, and she then missed the ball because I'd kind of touched it away, and just she was mid swing, and it's complete accident, nothing that she could do, full swing, and just must have caught me on a sweet spot on the left hand side of my jaw, just underneath my chin, and immediately I knew that I'd done something bad. I could feel the teeth, all that side of that bottom row set of teeth, kind of feel like they popped up in the middle of my mouth. And I remember everything about that moment. I remember the crowd did a pantomime, like gasp, and I just remember initial shock because I knew I'd done something bad, and then I remember getting really bad cramp in my right foot for some reason, which was totally weird. And then I just remember some of my teammates coming over and the umpire getting the physio on really quickly, and then I think the physio, bless her, I'm about to, was really confused because clearly I'd been hit in the face, but I was asking her to stretch my foot because my cramp was so painful. She was like, well, maybe this isn't so bad. And then she realised there was blood pouring out of my mouth, and it was quite bad. But then everything just seemed to slow down at that point. I kind of immediately knew that was my Olympics over. And I suppose there was something a bit calming from that thought, just well, that's it. That's done. You've made that tackle and you're not going to play anymore. So I didn't feel overly stressed or anything. I just kind of got up with the physio and the doctor and just walked off the field and got back to the medical team. And it wasn't until the next morning when I saw a surgeon, Dr. Holmes, and he came in and said, I think we can try and fix you and get you back out there, which I just thought was crazy. He told me that I'd had a really bad fracture to the jaw, but he could plate it, stitch me up all internally, and try and get me back out there. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, let's try and do this.
So were you able to eat normally, or was it just a diet of yogurt and soup? Yeah,
so normally he would have probably wired my jaw together, so wired it shut, and then would have had to really had very minimal and very blended food. But he just wired some of my teeth together and plated, as I said, inside. And so it enabled me to have, it was all mushed. So I basically had to have everything blended, which was incredible. So as you know, in the Olympic Village, you have any food that you could possibly think of. And being in London, Britain, we had you'd have a roast dinner. So it's meat, potatoes, veg, gravy. And Helen managed to blend all of that for me. And it was one of the best things I've ever tasted.
Well, mushy peas would have been a real hit anyway.
Oh, I love mushy peas. for 10 weeks I had to eat mush. So I lost so much weight at that time. I was already the leanest going into the games I'd ever been. And, kind of always lose a kilogram, maybe a kilogram and a half in a game, which you can replace pretty quickly. But I'd not been able to eat after that first game. So I was already kind of a kilogram and a half down. I couldn't eat that night. So I was like 2 getting to 3 kilograms lower than I'd ever been before. And so it was a case of just getting as much in as possible. So loads of chocolate milk and protein shakes and just getting the custard, anything I could possibly get down me, just try and get it in.
Doesn't sound too bad. You took out the bronze medal, beating New Zealand in the bronze medal match. Was that a fair reflection of where you were at as a team, or you were disappointed by that result?
We went there going for gold. In 2009, when we started the Central Programme, we had a really good few set of conversations about what we wanted to be about in those years leading up to the London Games, and we knew we had a real big opportunity. It was a home Olympics. We had all the kind of things that you get when it's a home Olympics. You get to train on the field before anybody else does. You get to understand what it's like when the stadium gets built up around you, and you get all those kind of home comforts. Plus we had the centralised programme now and a little bit of an increase in funding. And we decided as a squad that our vision was going to be gold. That was our vision, and we believed it. We all believed that we were capable of it, and we'd taken some massive strides. We'd gone from kind of around 8th in the world to winning World Cup bronze medal in 2010, Champions Trophy silver medal in 2012, and so we felt like we were there or thereabouts. We were definitely knocking on the door of those top 4, top 3 places, and we'd had some amazing games against Argentina in the build-up, and that semi-final against Argentina, they really turned it on in the first half, and we just conceded 2 goals, and we got one back and just unable to kind of get that equaliser at least. And so we felt that after that semi-final, it was our dream had been shattered, and it was heartbreaking. And just that 24 hours between the semi-final and the bronze medal game, it was so dark, because we'd for 3 years everything had been about that gold medal, everything, and that was now an impossibility. We don't have the chance to go for that, so refocus and go for the next best thing. And it was intensely hard for the whole group, but we trusted each other. We trusted that when that whistle went for that pushback against New Zealand, we'd be right on it, and we were right on it in that game.
Still, winning a bronze in front of your home crowd must have been something special when taking that podium.
Yeah, it was amazing. It absolutely wasn't what we went for, but I think there was in the end a bit of a contentment that we'd come such a long way, and we'd started to get a bit of consistency. And London was just the most electric 2 weeks. Every crowd. I remember switching on the TV. We're in the apartment for the very first game. I think, were you playing that first game?
Yeah, against New Zealand. Yeah, and we got scored against in the first couple of minutes against New Zealand. Okay, so we're off to a cracker of a start.
We won't talk about that, but the crowd was good. I remember that's all that we switched on. I thought, oh my God, there's a big crowd. It was early in the morning, wasn't it?
It was about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, very early.
Yeah, really early in the morning. And to have a good stand there, making loads of noise at that time, we were like, okay, this is going to be good. And it was. The crowd was electric the whole way through for every game. It was an amazing tournament.
Just goes to show you how many Australians probably end up in England. But did you feel an expectation? We always talk about retirement, and I feel as though you always get asked the question about when you're going to retire, but it did seem like it was going to be a huge focus after the London Olympics, or an expectation, that you were going to retire after the London Olympics.
I was probably thinking about it a little bit, but I don't know if it was because I was thinking, this is, I've maybe felt like I've done all that I can in the sport, or that I've gone as far as I can, or I can't take this mentally anymore, or physically. I actually think, looking back, it was more of an external pressure, and I was thinking, should I retire now? Do people expect me to retire now? I'm kind of 32. Should I be doing other things? And it was definitely more what other people thinking I should do, and I was kind of taking that on board. Because when I look back now, and in the last kind of 4 years of my career, when I think about moments that I went through when I really considered retiring, I absolutely wasn't ready at all to retire in 2012, but it was that external pressure. And I don't know if it's just an athlete thing or an age thing, or if it's a kind of culmination of age and being a woman, where it's like, oh, you're 32, you've not started a family yet. It's that you kind of feel that things hanging over you and the clock's ticking and everyone's like, oh, is they going to have a family? And all those questions come up more often, and it's an extra stress and a pressure that I hadn't had to deal with before. So I think that's probably what was going through my mind then.
Yeah, 2 years out, you played on, but 2 years out from Rio, where you probably had set your sights on winning gold again, the team actually came, I think it was 11th out of 12 at the World Cup, and your team did look a little bit out of sorts. Gold probably seemed a bit out of reach. What was the turning point? And, to go from 11th at World Cup to winning a gold medal in just 2 years, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was. It's tough, obviously, in every walk of life, but in sport in particular, you need change. You can't stand still. If you don't ever change anything, you're going to get overtaken. And so after London, we had a change of coach. So Jason Lee came over from the men's program. He'd been head coach of the men's program, and Danny became performance director. And I think there's change, and then and change can be difficult. And I think this was particularly difficult. I think having somebody kind of switch roles and then now suddenly become your boss. So now Danny was effectively Jason's boss, I think, where before they'd been on a par. I think that's difficult change to manage. And then I think, the squad and the central program and the players, we were Danny's babies. He'd grown this program, and then to kind of see somebody else now taking control of that, I think, was also quite hard. And they're also very different characters. Danny is absolutely brilliant at kind of giving the group power, kind of empowering the group, giving them responsibility, but he is absolutely the head coach. He is absolutely in control, and you know that from start to finish. Whereas I think Jason came in at a bit more of a kind of laissez-faire style of coach. He was much more relaxed with his decision making. It was just almost polar opposites in how they kind of managed the group. And I think perhaps because the majority of the group had come from Danny's era and Danny's way of coaching, we then came along with Jason's style. I think it was just too different. The culture became very different. It became a very different team. People changed. It brought different aspects of people's personalities out. And so those 2 years after London was really difficult. And we had some decent results. We won a silver medal at the Europeans in 2013. But it just, something's not right. And over time, it just started to get a little bit worse and a little bit worse until it culminated in that 11th place at the World Cup. And I think you saw the immediate change when, unfortunately, Jason moved on and Danny came back after that World Cup. The immediacy of the change, we were able to just immediately slot back into the mode almost that we'd known under Danny before. And that great game at the Commonwealth Games, the final against the Hockey Roos, was I think it was devastating to lose that gold medal with however many seconds on the clock, but I think for us, we're having come where we'd come from like 2-3 weeks before. We were like, okay, we're now going on a better path. We've got a bit more hope and belief. But for the group and for myself and for every individual in that team and staff, there was a lot of healing to have been done first. So kind of that September, December, that 2014 was tough for everybody in that group.
Let's focus on the present, and you now actually have retired on your own decision from international hockey. Were you certain about that decision this time round?
100%. And that's when I look back and I kind of laugh at myself when I look at 2012, because it wasn't really ever like a certain thing. Whereas this time round, I was like 100% done. I am done. And people say, "Oh, you'll know when it's time. When you know." And I was always a bit like, what does that mean? Like, how do you know? And then I was like, okay, yeah, that's what they mean, because I was just 100% sure. It's not physically, I was still in pretty good nick and I still enjoyed the job. I was still learning. I still enjoyed being the captain, but it was just time. It was time to stop. It was everything about it. And it was great way to finish as well. I think that possibly helped, but it was definitely done for me.
How are you finding your transition into the real world, so to speak? What are you doing with yourself as far as a 9-to-5 job? Have you managed to get one yet?
No, it's scary. I speak to schools quite a lot. I go and speak to school kids, and I say I feel like I'm kind of 15, 16 again. You're kind of that age where the world suddenly is kind of appearing before you, and this whole big scope of what is possible, and it's daunting. You look at it, you think, God, I could do that. Do I want to do that? I don't know. I could go over there. I could live there, and the options are so vast. It can really scare you. And I think there are certainly days when I have that, and I think, oh my God, what am I going to do? And life's changed completely. 18 months ago, I knew exactly where I had to be at what time, on what day, wearing what clothes, who with, for how long. Everything about my day was mapped out every single day, to the point where now I look at and I think, okay, what am I doing today? What am I doing tomorrow? And I'm self-employed, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm going into companies and talking about culture and teamwork and leadership. And I'm going into schools and helping coach and work with young people, particularly young girls, and empowering young girls, and improving their confidence levels, and talking about mental health. And there's loads of stuff that I'm really enjoying doing, but it's just completely different to what I have been doing. And I think that can be scary. As we said, change is difficult, and this is a difficult time.
I think often as athletes as well, you sort of miss out on those teenage, early 20 years to really explore what it is that you want to do, or what it is that you're interested and good at. So it's probably quite a common thing that athletes do experience after they finish from sport. So I can completely understand that. Before you go, it's time to end with some rapid fire questions. So I won't judge you if you throw any teammates under the bus. That's the whole point of it. All right. So most annoying person to play or train against?
It'd probably have to be Helen, my wife. She's so skillful, and she's made me fall on my arse quite a few times. She just can turn somebody inside and out, just with her ability to just move the ball and move her body and throw dummies. So I would always hate playing against Helen, for sure.
And she probably lorded over you when you got home as well to make matters worse.
Yeah.
Any weird superstitions within the team?
Yeah, I won't name and shame this person, but she knows who she is. In the Rio Olympics, having won the first game and wearing the red sock, skirt and shirt and bras, I'm hoping that she washed her pants. She didn't wash basically her kit for 8 games in 14 days. I'm really hoping that she did wash undergarments, but I'm not going to judge her. It worked.
It worked, exactly. If you could be a player in any team, so just choose a player who you would like to emulate, basically.
Oh my God, that's a great question. I've never been asked that before. Oh my goodness. Oh wow, there's so many. Goodness. I mean, as a defender, I think I'd have to go with somebody like Marty Prowman, who I think has been known for her, from the Netherlands, who's been known for her drag flick. I feel like she pretty much won the Beijing Olympics almost single-handedly, like in terms of her ratio she was scoring corners in that Olympic Games. But also she's not particularly known for, but she is so accomplished as a player. Her ability to read the game, her skill on the ball, her calmness in possession. She's, I think, one of the best players to play and just to deal with all that pressure.
Messiest teammate?
Go with that one. Messiest teammate. Ooh, let me think. There's been a few. Actually, Susanna Townsend and Sophie Bray's room. We literally moved into the village, and within it felt like 30 seconds they were in the same apartment as me. I went into their room, and it's like they'd been there for like 4 years. It's like a bomb had gone off in their room, in their apartment, and just stuff everywhere. I'm like, how have you managed this within 5 minutes of getting here? Yeah,
best that they're rooming together, probably. And final question: something that Danny Carey repeatedly says.
It's not about what you want; it's about what you need.
Fair enough, then. That's his go-to. I like it. Kate, congratulations on such a memorable and inspirational career, and thanks for being on The Circle with me today.
Thanks very much. It's been lovely to speak to you, Ash. Thanks very much.
For more conversations from the world of women's sport, Visit us at wissports.com, where you'll find blogs, videos, articles, and more than 700 episodes of the podcast, which is also available free on iTunes. We cover all sports for women around the world, and join us on social media too at wissports and Nelson_Ashley.